Now that Ultra Ego Vegeta has returned, there is no better time than now to pick up the Ultra Ego Vegeta merch on the Geekdom 101 store. Exclusive. You can get a t-shirt, a hoodie, various different designs and colors right now. Don't wait. They are going fast, and it's the first of its kind. Check it out. Welcome to my review of Dragon Ball Super Manga Chapter 84. A chapter that, well, is kind of divided for me. There are things about this manga chapter I really did like, and there are things about this chapter I personally did not like, but if I look at it objectively, or at least from the perspective of analyzing my own judgment here, the things that I liked about this chapter were a lot more superficial than what I did not like about this chapter. The previous chapter, 83, was one that was marred in controversy because of Bardock's wish, and we've been talking about that ever since the chapter came out, and the ramifications of his wish on the Dragon Ball story. The early pages of this chapter did confirm that Bardock's wish was granted by the Cerulean Dragon, and that the wish created a sort of a power boost in Bardock, plus his own will, allowing him to eventually go home, to be able to send his son away from planet Vegeta at some point in the future and save his life. But unfortunately, this became the victim of yet another mistranslation from Viz Media. In the Viz release, Bardock wished for his sons to thrive, but in the Japanese translation from Herms himself, it was worded more so in a way where he wanted his sons to grow up and be strong, which is exactly what happened to both Goku and Raditz, that neither one of them died until they met as adults in a twisted form of irony. Now, there's a lot that goes into this wish, and I've talked about it on numerous videos in the past month, and I'll probably keep talking about it in the next few weeks, and who knows how long, because it has some serious ramifications on the Dragon Ball story, because on the low end, you could say that the wish was, while set in good faith, sort of created a situation where Bardock had to be home in order to allow the events to transpire as we know them, and somewhat fixes the Dragon Ball minus, speculation that Bardock had about Frieza and gives it a bit more clarity. Plus, of course, Alec's message. But on the worst end of the spectrum, this could also mean that this literally created plot shielding for Goku, and that the reason as to why Goku was able to barely survive many moments during his childhood in Dragon Ball is because of this protective shield from the dragon. Now, there's a lot of different ways to look at this, and everyone has their own opinion on this, and there's different ways to also interpret the wish, although I seem to be pretty dead set on it being plot armor and a plot convenience created by Toyotaro to make Bardock's, role in the story more meaningful than it was before, which is something they've tried to do since Dragon Ball Minus, and I am not a fan of it. Now, if you disagree with that, that's fine. You have a right to your opinion, but there's no question that the intent of this is to make Bardock more important, whether it be for marketing purposes or just Toriyama having some new favor with that character. Now, again, I've talked about this a lot, and I'm not going to talk about this too much in this review because I've already talked about it for the past 3 minutes, right? It's something that happened, and unfortunately, as much as I don't like it, it is what it is. I can't change what, Toyotaro has already written. And I don't want that to be the only focus of this chapter, but I will say that to me was a big con from this chapter and the previous one, as well as this idea of Vegeta and Goku now realizing the importance of Saiyan Pride. Granted, I do understand that this is a little bit different than the Saiyan Pride that Vegeta had in Dragon Ball Z. When Vegeta spoke of Saiyan Pride in Dragon Ball Z when he was younger, he was talking about more so his own internal pride for his heritage, for him being not only a Saiyan, but of royal bloodline. A lot of what Vegeta did in Dragon Ball Z was ego-based, which is why the Ultra Ego form is so fitting for his character, even now. But it's also something to where it showed Vegeta's kind of small man complex he had until he finally grew out of it near the end of the Buu saga. Whereas this version of Saiyan Pride is actual pride for the race and not just his own bloodline. This is actually Vegeta realizing that even though Bardock was a low-class warrior, he still made decisions that he felt was right for him and for his children. And even though, yes, it was... He even makes a joke about how it wasn't fair that Goku was wished to be protected. It still was a thing where Bardock made a noble choice, but also chose not to go down without a fight, which is something that even low-class warriors of the race will do. So that's the way that I'm interpreting that statement. But again, when it comes to Dragon Ball, there's always room for different opinions and interpretations. It's just that this seems a bit cut and dry for me, but somebody will always come along and hit me with something that I wasn't expecting, and I'll be like, hey, that's interesting. But like I said, I discussed a lot of this wish in the Bardock's Wish Explained video and in the Hidden Truth Behind Bardock and the Dragon Balls video that I did here on the channel. So check those out because they are crucial. Now, moving on, besides the early part of this chapter, which I didn't like, I actually did enjoy most of the rest of the chapter, but a lot of it was for, like I mentioned earlier in the review, superficial reasons. We got to see the return of Ultra Instinct and Ultra Ego, and that's cool. And it's the first time we're actually seeing Goku and Vegeta working together using these respective forms. Ultra Instinct and Ultra Ego unite for the first time in combat against Gas. That was freaking cool. We've been waiting for that for quite some time now, and we finally got it. But the thing is, yes, it was cool. And yes, it was fun to see, and it made the chapter more enjoyable, but it's just a fight. And Dragon Ball has always given us, well, not always, but most of the time, given us good fights. So, for me, I'd prefer a good story along with the good fights, and I'm just not sure if the trade-off was really worth it in this instance. However, I must say, like I always say, that Toyotaro's art has improved, and having the return of Ultra Ego Vegeta finally is refreshing, and of course UI Goku and his silver hair. This is of course after they blue balled us by showing Goku and Vegeta in Saiyan armor and then having them both say, we don't want to wear this. Toyotaro was obviously doing that as a bait and switch for the drafts to get everybody hyped up to see Goku and Vegeta wearing the armor, especially Goku, because that's a big deal for him. The only time he's ever worn Saiyan armor has been during his training with Gohan in the Cell Saga. So that could have been a great moment for him as far as relating to his father, and it was kind of just taken away from us. And I'm not really sure why, because seeing Goku wearing the Saiyan armor could have been kind of cool, just even if it's just for one fight. So most of this chapter was combat, and that does seem to be the strengths of this entire arc. I've had a lot of problems with the story of the Granola arc. I've talked about it. I haven't been secretive about it. I've talked to you guys about it. Some of you guys agree, some disagree. But I have been critical of the story. It's not my favorite story at all. It's probably one of my least favorite Dragon Ball stories. But at the same time, the fights have been great. Ultra Ego, I've had fun with it. There's good stuff to be enjoyed here, and this chapter has enjoyable fights. And while the fight is going on, we see that the Heater gang is still around, lurking in the shadows, watching things, preparing for some kind of backup plan. There's a lot of clues that there's more to Gas's power than meets the eye, including from Elec himself. So I wonder if there was maybe a wish that was made, maybe besides the one that he made, or maybe the way he worded this wish was different. But he did talk about how he made this wish after the fight with Granola and the Saiyans, so Gas would be the strongest they've ever faced off against. But this is also Gas's first time ever having to deal with techniques that are from angels and gods of destruction. That is to say, Ultra Instinct and Ultra Ego, which uses Hakai energy. And as we've talked about for the past few years, Hakai energy is a different form of God Ki and one that is very dangerous towards mortals. And it looks like Vegeta, based on how he performed in this chapter, has figured out how to use Ultra Ego even more effectively than he did against Granola. Or it could be that because he no longer has that same guilt that he had because of the history with Granola and his family and the fact that, Vegeta's family in a way helped wipe away Granola's family or Granola's race, that now he can go full blast against Gas without having to worry about his guilt preventing him from maximizing the power of a god of destruction. Remember, that was the whole problem before, that Vegeta couldn't really let go of that guilt in order to be a destroyer properly. But with Gas, we know that Gas has a whole history of heat with both Saiyans and the Cerealians, and he comes from a bad family, so Vegeta probably at this point is thinking, you know what, let me just get rid of this dude. And that's where I think he's beginning to really harness that Ultra Ego power. That's been a struggle for Vegeta for several chapters, and now it's actually coming around full circle, which I am happy about. So there is some progression here from both Goku and Vegeta. I also like the fact that Gas's fighting intellect has gone up because of the wish. He might have never met Beerus. He might not know what a God of Destruction is, but he knows that the power that Vegeta is using here is scary. And thus, when Vegeta launches a Hakai Ball at him, he uses his shield to protect himself, knowing that if the shield gets, evaporated or entropied away, that he can still live as opposed to his arm or maybe his whole body. So now Gas's abilities to manifest weapons aren't just an offensive maneuver, they're also used as a defensive maneuver, and thus we have an evolution of his techniques, and I really like that. Like I said, there's things about this chapter I really do like. It's just the whole backstory stuff and the way they keep changing the past is really pissing me off. But the stuff that it's going on right now is so much better. Alex seems very confident because of the fact that they used those same transformations against Granola and couldn't get the job done despite Gas being concerned. But remember, Saiyans get stronger with every fight, especially Ultra Ego, which turns out to be one of the big teases for next month. There's a big sequence here where Goku has to help basically save the lives of an entire city, and they end up getting split up for a bit. Goku uses his mastery of God Ki to be able to push the Hakai Ball away from the planet and save the inhabitants of that city without touching it, which shows that he still has that ability to use Ki in the proper defensive way. And while that's happening, Vegeta is getting pummeled by Gas, and Gas begins to get overconfident, but Vegeta ends the chapter by telling him that this is not going to go the way he thinks because he's still moving despite being injured, and Vegeta says that he's getting stronger with every blow and that the damage that's being inflicted on him is like fuel. And this is the same thing that happened when Ultra Ego Vegeta fought Granola. So this appears to be a version, or not a version, but it appears to be property of the Ultra Ego form, is that he can get stronger in battle when he takes damage. It's sort of like what Broly does, except with a much more dangerous side effect, not as far as like the out of control rage part of it, but the fact that God Ki, or in this case Hakai Ki even more so, can make things disappear. So Vegeta is getting stronger and stronger, and that is where we leave this Dragon Ball Super Chapter 84 ending at, with Granola beginning to understand that Ultra Ego Vegeta is not going down without a fight. So lots of questions going into the next chapter. What is going to happen with Granola? Is he going to get involved in the fight? What about the Heaters? What's their plot? Lots of unanswered mysteries behind that whole thing. And is Ultra Ego Vegeta going to be the one to defeat Gas? Will it be Vegeta and Goku together? Will it be Granola? And what remains of this arc? If there's anything you think I missed, I will be streaming about this coming Saturday. So be there, join me for the stream as we discuss Dragon Ball Super Manga Chapter 84 with all of you live. So if you think I missed something, feel free to tell me on that stream and we'll talk about it. It should be a fun time. Thanks again for watching. You have a great day, and I'll see y'all in the next one.